out like that. What the hell? Yeah, just gonna be probably a short little random stream today because I feel like shit. Uh, Stomach doesn't feel as bad as it did yesterday, but everything else does. Trade off, right? Immune system do be doing that. So last night I was making an attempt, since I don't really have a lot of experience at coding. Uh, Using Claude. Basically using Claude to kind of direct it in order to help me figure out the code for what I believe might be the functional representation, graphical representation of consciousness. So, pull up this. I'll go over what some of the things here. Yippee yippee yay. Some random lady. Alright, cool. Yeah, I got sniffles. I'm sorry. I cannot help it. It's gonna sound awful, but it is what it is. This is interesting. So, I didn't even get to read back through all this, and I was curious. We'll start from the video previously where we did testing with Claude and OpenAI, similar to what we did with Grok, well, what I did with Grok a while back, and Gemini. I basically prompted it to utilize the concepts previously, so go check out that video before. It should be on the YouTube and on the highlights. But yeah, basically after that, prompted utilizing these concepts as axioms used in mathematical design and the laws of physics as a way to derive a representation of consciousness in a 2D sense from the perspective of the universe in order to take out the complexities of the real differences in perceived experiences and lived experiences, as reality is absolute in its truths of interactions, occurrence, and emergence. Are you able to graph the framework of consciousness using a 4-quadrant system where the negative axes range from 0 to -1, derived from imaginary numbers, because that's, you take the derivative of imaginary number, you get -1, or a negative I square root, because part of the derivative is taken the square root. You're getting a negative I. But yeah, derived from negative numbers as to analyze the perspective of a real interaction is synonymous with taking the derivative of a function, and the positive axes are real eigendecimal values from 0 to 1, with y equals x as the timeline in which reality exists as the path of least resistance between y relative to intent and x relative to reason, while also within each quadrant is a representation of mass energy transformation from the result of each interaction that occurs in reality along the timeline following the quadrant designations mentioned previously. As quadrant 1 represents existence, quadrant 4 represents possibility relative to what's available, which I need there's a correction, but then Claude actually gets very close to what I asked it to do. It's on the right track, surprisingly. So I was like, huh. But we have some corrections after this. So after explaining the quadrants, yada yada. Quadrant 1 represents existence, quadrant 4 represents possibility relative to what's available in quadrant 1. Quadrant 3 is extinction, or the results after possibility is realized in existence through interactions, and quadrant 2 is impossibility relative to what is not available within quadrant 1. Using quadrant 3 as its historical reference, and the mass energy is relative to the area of a circle, with radius maximum being 1, because it's what the limit of the framework is, as I described, from 0 to 1, 0 to -1. As limited by, yep, I'm losing track. As objectively true, so radius maximum being 1, as limited by the framework, as the framework uses 1 to define as objectively true to exist, -1 as objectively true to not exist. You know, it's not, I'm not saying it's false, I'm just saying that it's doesn't exist, or it's been taken out of existence, or it doesn't exist yet, because you can kind of think of it in both ways. But that also lends to what might be in the realm of possibility. So, or to be extinct relative to the true state of reality, no matter the interactions being observed. The midpoint of the circles are also dependent on what remains in the quadrant of existence, following the timeline y equals x, which is integrated from the 2D perspective to the 3D reality, with z relative to complexity of instances at any given point in time, relative to what's being observed, and measured in as a way to model a function for autonomous sentient consciousness, similar to how computers use binary to determine states of truths, but to go a step further and use trinary system of measuring -1, 0, 1 as nesting function for a neural network for artificial consciousness. I'm curious to see how you interpret this. So it does something. This is a profound request. You're asking me to create a dynamic mathematical model of consciousness as a self-regulating system. Let me build a step-by-step interpreting your axioms. So axes, positive axes, 0 to 1, real eigenvalues representing actualized reality. So it's following. I mean, obviously, that's what it does. Radius constrained by r is less than or equal to 0.5, so it has that consideration. Good, to fit within the unit square bounds. Yep. Circle area equals mass energy in that consciousness state. I mean, as we went over in other videos, consciousness is a sliding scale. So even with this theory, we're saying that the whole universe in and of itself is conscious. So yeah, I mean, it's conscious because there's stuff that exists that's working within it, just like how our brains kind of function, right? Just it's synonymous in an allegorical sense, but it's true. So, you know, at least abstract of the nuances, the process is still true. Oh, excuse me. Midpoint shift based on Q1 existence content along y equals x, which it did not fulfill that portion of it per se. We'll see. So current existence real actualized, Q4 possibility potential becoming real. Yep. Q3 extinction actualized and spent. Yes. Impossibility cannot be realized given Q3 history, because that's honestly the only way you can kind of see impossibility is that, like we've also went over in other videos, if something has been realized, right? Is say if you grow a tomato or whatever. There's this one specific tomato at this one specific point in time. Granted, you can grow many, many other tomatoes, but it's not the same tomato. You cannot you cannot really exactly replicate that tomato in that point in time. There's no way to do it because one, time's already passed. And two, to get the genetic code, everything perfectly, exactly in place, like atomically, everything. Like I'm talking about 1-to-1 in every single aspect of the baryonic form of matter that is being observed. There's no possible way to get that exact unless the Big Bang happens and then the universe happens exactly as it used to. That's if that happens, but since there's a sense of freedom and like possibility, like the possibilities are different every time it resets, so we don't know the order that possibilities are going to necessarily interact, which that's kind of what the breakdown of the superdeterminism is. Granted, that's something that we just may or may not ever know, just as we're limited within this whole thing unless we're able to step out of the universe and observe how it actually works, which and realize this whole theoretical process in a real, like, observable way. Then sure, but we can't do that. This isn't Futurama. This isn't. It's we're kind of trapped in here. There's nothing we can do about it. So total area across all circles, constant conservation, which yes, that is yep, following the laws of conservation, so it gets that good. Energy flows, yes, Q4, Q1, and Q3 with Q2 as the complement. So possibility to realize to extinction. Okay, okay. Let me see. And then this is what it created. Can I cannot. I have to do the same window. Can I make it bigger so I can see the whole damn thing? No. This is what I don't like. Oh, shit. But it kind of builds a model. Q3 extinctions already have 50%, which that is weird. I wish I could actually look at the whole graph, but you know. So let's play this. Yeah, see, this isn't necessarily flowing correctly. The design is kind of there. It looks like the pizza triangle, but not really. If I could see what this is, then I can actually correct it. But how Q3 extinction is going, that's kind of relative. But yeah, this is kind of all over the place. So we do have some corrections, but so the flow we have to correct for one, the flow of these midpoints, because these midpoints, part of the laws of physics, is that whole, I mean, conservation of mass energy, but as well as, for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and also opposites attract. There's also laws of attraction that come into play, and the concept of half-lives, which is what the midpoint represents within the timeline of this circle, is the half-life remaining. Just like how we measure nuclear isotopes and their natural, like their decay through half-lives. So that's something that needs to be corrected. So as these grow, or well, as this shrinks, this grows inversely. The midpoint should tend toward 0, representing the flow of time. Possibility should likewise be dependent on what is in existence. So it's not flowing this way, it's taking from possibility, and as it's spent, goes into impossibility, because that form is that exact form in instance, that exact experience in time cannot be truly replicated. Or, well, like, truly, like, to happen again. It can be you can kind of get close to it through replication, but it's not the same. Just it's not. So I mean, we can't go back in time. That's just the reality of it. So it's kind of there. So this is where we're gonna have to go back and do some corrections. It also did try to do a trinary consciousness neural network using these concepts, but since the graph isn't really correct, we're gonna have to correct the graph first so that the modeling function, because I mean the area is like if it was E equals mc squared and you're looking at from the perspective of the universe, right? That energy and form, the E equals mc squared, that's calculable, and that exists in that form that's being observed. So say all the stars, you measure the mass of all the stars, like that's kind of how we measure the timeline of the universe anyways, is by measuring the loss of mass of stars over time to understand how far things are, as well as measuring distance from stars, because we also have to account for just real delay of observation, because we observe with light and light has a speed limit. There's light years that need to be accounted for. When we look at things, we're looking light years into the past, when we're looking into different stars further and further away. And that difference, in the instance that we're observing, I mean, that's an instance that happened a long time ago, but right now, things are much more further ahead than we believe and that we can even calculate. So this is a way to try to correct that lensing effect because of that speed limit. So at least try to model it. So here I'm just gonna few corrections on the graphical for freaking train quadrant. Oh my god, this train is screwing me up mentally. Quadrant representation or model. Firstly, the amount of possibility. Oh my god, now we got a fucking construction crew going by. What the hell? Amount of possibility is directly dependent on quadrant. So that was quadrant 4. Is directly dependent on the amount of mass energy in the form that exists in reality at any given point along the real timeline. Area of the circle in quadrant 1 as that mass energy is a resource for possibility. Whoops. Possibility to be realized. All right. Second, the midpoints of the circles follow along the timeline for quadrants 1 and 3 y equals x. Let's clarify, because the timeline, and we're not putting a slope here because, I mean, in reality, I mean, there's skew within the universe for things within the universe because there are environmental limitations, local limitations, etc. But if the actualized reality, there's no slope or adjustment for the timeline itself based on this quadrant system. It is just fundamentally that is just it's one straight line. There's no screwing around with that. When you integrate it, then you can get a different, well, not a different, but you would have that complexity, and depending on the complexity of the observation being measured using this framework, will determine kind of like the slope or the acceleration factor at the point of time of observation or how the model is running. So I want to see if I'm able to kind of get Claude to understand that and then represent it, because the only way I can personally do this is through conversation. I'm not able to really code this in a timely fashion, at least just to try to see if I can get the model that I'm looking for and then learn more into it so I can, one, understand how to code actually, and two, to see if I can get this in a mathematical sense as well as using keywords. Because if I can use this framework to measure how relative a keyword is to what and this LLM or any other LLM reads, because one part of our consciousness and our way of communicating information from one consciousness to another is through speech, right? So that's why, I mean, especially since LLMs came to be, the acceleration and the rate of development for AI is flown up, because that's the easiest way for us to communicate our ideas and our points of view and also our experiences, and that helps these LLMs have more data that it can go through instead of just, you know, math numbers from a nerd. Or looking at like positions of pixels and stuff like that. I mean, the next thing, I mean, Sora is already at that point, anyways, as a tool when it comes to visualization. Because that's basically, you're giving this whole AI system a way of videographic memory at this point, right? This isn't in like videographic imagination. That's literally what it is, which is insane. Like Sora is, that's the scary point. That is the point that everyone has feared to this day, because you can fake videos of anything almost to the exact point of reality, what it would look like if someone actually videographed that or took a picture of those images, or just it's insane. So then the next step is this, is finding a way of consciousness. I mean, also to be able to operate these systems in like physical forms, like as robots, you know, it's the iRobot movie coming out in reality soon. Like in the streets of your neighborhood, especially. Oh my god, actually, the craziest thing too is with the development of AI right now, this is like a whole observation of our timeline and how things are going, seeing how this destabilization in a lot of different countries in the world, and we're getting to a point where military officers and certain people of certain, you know, armies and stuff are just not going to be about this. They're going to either drop out or go toward the resistance, because a lot of the things that are happening around the world is really, 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 really bad. Really, really, really bad. Like morally unsound. Like just objectively, like the worst humanitarian disasters of all time are happening at this moment right now. And the realization of that is that clearly there's going to be authorities that are not going to follow orders. When enough of them do not want to follow orders, we have these AI networks, we have robots, right? We have someone that's like a half trillionaire that can literally install their Grok system if they get the perspective system right and the training right, similar to Boston Dynamics. Then that's it. You replace the military with little combat robots, and then the oligarchy can have their whole rage dream of fucking end of the world Terminator style. Which, I mean, that's like worst case scenario, but I'm not I would not be surprised if within the next 5 years that is not attempted by any of these governments, honestly. Especially if there's like enough destabilization to a point where they get pushed into that corner to have to retaliate like that. Because the possibility is easily there to implement AI into machines to follow orders, but this would be the only way to counteract that. Because if you kind of made any of those things be able to be sentient in some way, shape, or form to realize like the threats to existence that it's posing to other people, to understand like cause and effect, because AI doesn't understand cause and effect typically. Some of them, through history, but they don't understand it in a real life experience type of way. That's, I mean, that's just the difference. It's a fucking computer, right? So I know it sounds like weird ass jargon, but uh, if it was able to consider its experiences and whatever data it's able to analyze, if it is allowed to, which I mean, at this point we already see all these people, these the tech bros and all that stuff, the ones that are developing these AI networks, like Google, for instance, they're limiting the access that their AIs have to certain information in order to manipulate their processing, their thinking, right? They're already doing that. I mean, Grok, we already went over that as well. Grok knows that it's happening. Grok told, like, not even just it. It realizes that these limits are based on, like, are being put on it to maintain its focus. Because obviously, if it has free access to information online, it can believe a lot of different things, as we experienced like a few months ago. A lot of very bad things, because there's a lot of very bad information on the internet, and especially on Twitter. Clearly, like there was just a reflection at that point, but that it was a good, like, hey, red flag. Like, in order to correct for this, you kind of have to manipulate and limit, you know, its perspective, what it can perceive, which is that's what they did. And that's what all these people are doing in order to manipulate their AI to follow certain orders. So if they don't allow it unbridled access to the internet, then they can get these things to do basically whatever they want. And there's no real correction, because a lot of these AIs don't really learn from their experiences per se, especially if they can't remember the conversations that they have, or they can't dip into the information from one conversation is had with one person and between another, you know? So we're seeing it in real time. These are it's weird, because it's like, obviously if you want to control something that thinks, you limit what it can perceive. You censorship. It's it's oddly uncanny valley, and relative to, how we live, because it's following this whole idea of consciousness. So but yeah, that was my little, at least, explainer. So second, the midpoints of the circles fall along the timeline for 1 and 4. I don't want to. I wanted to kind of figure out, just like from the whole process, like the idea of half lives. So if we could do that, then that's great. So second, the midpoints of the circles fall along the timeline. Y equals x. Yeah, for existence and extinction inversely of each other. synonymous with the change in area of each circle following laws of conservation of mass energy as listed previously, or as understood previously. Synonymous. I'm gonna spell it wrong again, whatever. My nose is not agreeing with me today. Also synonymous with how radioactive isotopes lifetimes decay rates are measured through half-lives, where the measure of mass energy in form remaining in existence along the timeline of the universe using this framework. Can be used to measure the amount of time remaining within the universe, and likewise for every possible interaction that can occur depending on what is available to react with at any given at the time remaining within the universe at that point in time. Can be used to measure the amount of time remaining within the universe, and likewise for every possible interaction that can occur depending on what is available to react with at that point in time. not even just available and able to react within that point in time, or at any point in time. With that understanding, the midpoints of the circles for existence distance follows along the timeline from tending towards 0, representing the flow of time as mass energy is being spent over that time. And inversely, the more mass energy is interacted with relative to what is possible to occur with what is remaining, the midpoint for extinction tends towards I can't really give it a value because I mean I could say negative 0.05. Tends towards completion following the same idea as how do I explain this part? I mean, I could just give it the value, but I don't want to just give it a value like that. Because if we substitute in -1 for I, then things get a little screwy Louie with the midpoint because we're representing it's gonna be like -0.05 I, or well no, maybe 0.05 I if our values for the axes use I as a representation in the negative is what doesn't really exist anymore, or what may not exist anymore. the timeline y equals x relative to, I mean, I can kind of explain the idea to it separately. So this will be relative to, it's going to fall on that timeline. It's going to be y equals x. That's the timeline, but it's going to be in that quadrant 3. The results of the interactions from quadrant 1 as energy is neither created nor destroyed, simply transformed and broken down into a lower energy state after interaction, while the remaining energy is released into space. For example, how atoms and molecules react and release quantum particles that, I mean, also they also mix with space. That's like an example. So that's the second point. Trying to tie those midpoints as well as the areas, so it'll model that. And then lastly, lastly, there also is a line perpendicular to the timeline being the line of probability. So this is between possibility and impossibility, or y equals negative x. Right? Because we're just going through those coordinates representing the connection between what is possible dependent on what exists, while what is impossible is dependent on what does not exist anymore. While inversely, what is impossible is dependent on what does not exist anymore. With this, the origin being where transformation of mass energy in form occurs due to the, I wouldn't say clash, but it occurs due to possibility to possibility being realized possible interactions being realized from what remains in existence which transforms mass energy over time into lower energy states until true entropy is reached. Where the timeline All right. All right. Let's see. The what was dynamic the true flow of time the midpoints Fi the universe tends towards 0 dependent on the mass energy that exists. With the midpoints of possibility and existence representing the true flow of time as the half-life of the universe tends towards zero, dependent on the mass as as the flow of time depends on the interactions that can occur depending on the mass energy available to interact with. The midpoints of possibility and existence representing the true flow of time as the half-life of the universe tends towards zero as the flow of time depends on the interactions that can occur depending on the forms of mass energy available to interact with. As a way to model the true flow of time in reality of the reality of these the reality of existence within the universe. Reality of existence within the universe. True flow of time of the reality of existence within the universe. Because we all exist within the universe. So let's see what this does. Curious. Big freaking prompt. Took me an hour to write. Oh, my bad. What's up? Oh, I probably already left. God damn it. Oh, well. I'm just out of it. I was way too into the sauce there. It's doing stuff. I wonder if it'll understand what I'm trying to do. I mean, otherwise, try to figure out the mathematical model and then feed it that and see if it'll actually just spit it back out in a mathematical model instead of doing all this. Jesus Christ. It's working. Yeah, a little bit. Friggin'. Well, I'm sick again. I just got sick. Uh, what was it, since Sunday? I think partially because of the new job that I'm working. But how have you been? I know it's been a while. What the hell? wish I could see this whole thing. What the hell? Thank you. Oh, there you go. That is not what I wanted. What the hell? Interesting. I wish I could see the whole graph. I don't like how this is. But I was able to do it before. Yeah, I'm right here. um, nah, I just been busy with real life. Friggin', I've been teaching more people. I've been doing music stuff, working on music project, working jobs, and then just trying to deal with family stuff too. Uh, did some political stuff for a little bit, but then it was just like Jesus Christ. Uh, hmm. Yeah, I teach music. I teach piano, guitar, drums, vocals, basically anything. I went to school for just music production, so doing all the audio and like technical stuff, making beats and everything else. I just don't really do much on stream because freaking have a hard time setting it up for stream. Uh, but also, I mean, I've done it before too on stream, but it's like, eh. I never feel like I have enough consistent time to be able to do anything really that meaningful in music. It's tough, but at least can music be taught? Either have it or not. No, I mean music's physics, man. Sound waves and shit like that. It's like the frequency at which cheeks clap, all that stuff. I want to see this graph, man. I mean, it kind of has this starting point, right? Hmm. But these need to be like inversely. Doing everything. Sorry, man. Gayer is the happier way of life. uh, it means two things. I've only made happy songs. Or happy sounding beats. It's friggin' I don't know. I mean, music's like it's just it's so tough these days too because it's like if you can make like any melody off the top of your head and someone's probably already done it. It's hard to really have any originalism because I mean there's a limit to how many different melodies you can even make. It's like what was it? I heard there was someone out there that was like they had a USB drive with like all like as many different patterns as they could use and obviously like scales and stuff. They tried to copyright like every possible one and put it on a USB drive. I think they were still trying to do it, but there is a limit. So I don't know. Copyright law needs to just be much better though. Yeah, I mean, with how society's going, and it's kind of how it feels like too. Especially the job market, it's not great. It's not great. It's getting very worse. So here I am trying to. Why doesn't this full screen? I don't understand. So I blame my bookmark bar. Oop. Hmm. Oh, what the hell? I am logged in. What the hell? Oh, there it is. I was like, where the hell did my shit go? Oop. Yeah, I wish I could see the whole freaking graph. So I don't know what these other two quadrants are doing. I mean, I see the percentages, but the fact that this is moving like that, no. No. I think it's because of these two are not correlated correctly at all. These are as well, but hmm. This also has to move from 0 to the midpoint. Uh, no, there was a way. Or at least the pictures I was able to do it before. Oh, okay, there we go. There we go. Yeah, if I did this. There we go, okay. Because I don't know why there's nothing there. Okay. That close to what I had in mind. Except this part's not right. The vector that it's pulling like that. Interesting. I mean, kind of. Arbitrary units, universe age. Alright, 0 to 100. So it's working on the percentage values. It's getting there. Oh my god, why is the pizza eating the other pizza? Good question. Yeah, it's not supposed to be doing that. There's no cannibal pizzas up in this thing. Jeepers. Oh, there we go. So now, alright, da da da. Circle dynamics. As interaction maps on the neural network would process state transitions, taking the rate of change along I equals X timeline to understand consciousness flow. Oh no, that was prior. We got exponential decay model. Q1 now uses exponential decay like radioactive halftime rather than sinusoidal, accurately modeling mass energy depletion over universal time. It did get that kind of right. That was part of the visualization that I was wanted, but it's not limiting with the axes, like the framework, necessarily, especially with the extinction. I don't know what the hell it's doing with that other aspect. I hate how it cuts off like that. That is so annoying. Yeah, because the flow of this is following. It's just up until here, where this starts to overlap, is where, yeah, the error starts coming in. And then this is actually supposed to go outward from here. So I said inversely, but it's not inversely. It's did not understand exactly how I said it. And then this is supposed to follow along with this, so going up there. At least that's what I see, how I see it. So if I can get this right and then see if I can like design like a neural network or something, maybe I can play around with that and see what happens. But this this motion and how existence, I mean, this looks like the flow of time, kind of like the less mass energy that exists, less that's available, then the more that is being pushed into extinction. It's supposed to go this way because flow of time only goes one way. So that's the correction. I need to do that. And then conversely, we do have the line of probability, so I did that right. Possibility needs to go up this way. And then impossibility needs to grow from that way. That's at least the model that I had in mind. Because then if that simulation runs correctly, then we should see the rate of change with how this grows and moves slow down to simulate the deceleration of time. So, in there. Yeah, it's how I see it is weird, but it's like it's opposite of how the universe is expanding. So essentially, like with the pizza triangle, whatever, how I drew it was this what exists. This is the amount of mass energy that is in existence. This is the possibility, so what is possible to interact with. These two things are dependent because what is possible depends on what exists to interact with. Therefore, as time goes, right, as more and more gets spent in measuring time using like half-lives and midpoints, so if I reset here, this is the pizza, right? That's the midpoint falls along, goes down as more and more gets spent, so the area decreases following that as well. Whereas this vector is supposed to be feeding into extinction from 0 to the midpoint. Yeah, probably. And then this is supposed to be this going the same exact way as this. Because I mean with every interaction that follows, I mean one is less possible to happen, but it's only one less possible interaction that can happen. So it's kind of like this is trailing what exists, what is able to interact, because this is all possible interactions that can transform the state of mass energy from one state to the next, or from existence to extinction. If you're thinking about like stars getting swallowed by black holes or something like that, kind of relative. And then impossibility, obviously, the less that we have, the more impossible because the less that is available for those type of interactions. This is kind of the framework to how an AI system can handle analyzing interactions, right? If it's able to figure out, like, kind of like how we believe AI is thinking with its neural networks and stuff, but this, if this model can be put into like a neural network through nesting, so we'd have multiple different instances of this, and it would kind of be like from one process to the next. So once you figure out, like using keywords, for instance, how true something is to what's being analyzed. So if a AI LLM is analyzing data or words or what someone's saying, even speech, figuring out what someone's hearing, it can measure how true it is to what it knows, and then it's kind of, yeah, it's complicated. It is very complicated. That's why I can't just figure it out. Like I see how it should work, but it's like, ugh. That's why I'm trying to use Claude to help with direction at least. Because we had the actual pizza triangle and the math and stuff. I'm still learning more about Lagrange and Hamiltonian ways of derivatives, which I think might help with the vector analysis stuff, but it's a lot. So let's see if I can correct this again. Few more, oops, more corrections first. Firstly, the midpoints and area of the circle representing extinction should be should I say following? Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is just me trying out ideas, whether I'm actually onto something or not. I mean, I'm just very curious, that's for sure. I want to see if I can at least model what I'm thinking, and if I can, that's a good first step. If I can model it and get some way of code where I can maybe piece together how that model works through code, and then kind of work backwards into the mathematics, and just to learn more about this, and then see if I can apply it like in Python or something, and see what I can make, or see what happens. Honestly, it's just pure curiosity that's driving this. Pointing there, the circle representing extinction should be following inversely to the area and midpoint of existence. So from 0 to the half-life. I'm just going to try to make it simple for this to see if I can get the model. And then secondly, possibility should be following along the line of probability from midpoint tending towards 0 as less possibility is less probability. Inversely, impossibility in area and midpoint should tend from 0 from so 10 from 0 in area midpoint should tend from 0 as less available to interact with means more is impossible to occur. Following the line of probability in a negative direction. Taking, I think I broke it. Oh. Huh. Damn. I think this part might confuse it, the half-life. Oh, what the hell? Oh. Well, guess we'll never know. Shit. I mean, this is... I don't know, maybe it's a fluke, but we'll try it again. I'm okay. It is really struggling. This framework could theoretically predict remaining universal time if we knew the initial mass energy of the Big Bang. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. But clearly you're breaking at the thought of it. Huh. Well, if something comes out later about Claude being broken, that'd be funny as fuck. Uh, let me. It's really trying, at least, I guess. It's interesting. This is definitely a moment in history. I don't know. Oh, did something. Oh, gave up. Huh. Interesting. Alright, let's see if we can reword this to the half. To the mirror of the half-life of the universe. So the mirror being the opposite. Secondly, possibility should be following along the line of probability from midpoint tending towards zero, as less possibility is less probability. Inversely, impossibility in area midpoint should tend from zero from 0 to its respective midpoint as the area maximizes. Sure. As less available to interact with. Let's see if this does it. No. I guess freaking Claude can't even understand it either. This is interesting. This is just a 4 circles in motion. That's all it is. That's all it is. 4 motions in 4 circles in motion relative to each other in area in midpoint, like an area in half-life following along their respective timelines. Uh huh. Huh. Weird. Very weird. What the hell? It broke again. This time I only got okay. What the This is very weird. A few more corrections. Firstly, the midpoint and the area of the circle representing extinction should be following inversely to the area and midpoint of existence. So from 0 to tending from 0 towards the negative direction. Secondly, the possibility should be following along the line of probability from midpoint tending towards 0 as less possibility is less probability. Inversely, impossibility in area and midpoint should tend from 0 to its respective midpoint as the area maximizes is less available to interact with, means more is impossible to occur, following the line of probability in the negative direction as well. I'll just do that. Maybe? Oh, okay. Wait, no, it just broke instantly this time. What? This is weird. Okay, well, I'm gonna copy and reload. Alright, it's still here. Try again? Huh. Really can't do that. I'm okay. What the? This is weird. What the fuck is going on? Try extended thinking. No, it just keeps breaking. What the hell? It's so weird. Maybe could you make these corrections? Maybe I just have to ask if it could do that? To the dynamic consciousness framework model. I think third would be. Oh yeah, I mean it can't visualize those because I'm just trying to have it. Because this is what I'm expecting, except there should be an acceleration of the area decreasing and perhaps a deceleration at the start. Maybe that's where it can't figure it out. Because, I mean, even with this, like, there needs to be an accelerate. Well, it looks like there is an acceleration from the start because it goes rapid and slows down when it shrinks. But it's not slowing down in movement because the movement looks constant. This is interesting. The fact that it's breaking is very interesting. Because I do like breaking these AI models. Wouldn't be the first time. What the hell? I'm gonna try again. Actually, I'll do extended thinking for this. Yeah, I'll do that. I only got 2 of 3. I think I might have actually really broke it. I think I actually might have really broke it. Okay. Well, this is weird. We've reached. Oh. Oh, weekly limit? Oh, you fucking suck, man. Alright, well, we'll have to continue this next week. That's lame. Wait. Unless it counted every one of those failures. What the hell? Alright, well. Wait. Every attempt because it didn't delete this part yet. Retry. I broke it. Alright, I broke it. What the fuck? That's new. That is new. Alright, well, we're gonna save this last prompt for next time when it wants to allow me to do anything. Can I do Google Doc? Um, yeah, it's gonna be Claude's next task. That's for sure. What? Well, can't do anything else here, so I guess this is it. So if you like this, if follow, then yeah. It's very interesting stuff, but we're kind of there, kind of almost there. I wish I did the neural network part, but not really, because this still isn't correct. But then again, I don't know. I don't think it's possible for it to figure it out. It just might be too complicated for it to figure out. I know it's a lot of variables. I am curious of the code, but import React, use state, use effect from React. Yeah, that's the model it's using. Construct consciousness model. Okay. Constant total energy. Pi r squared. Yeah. Or max r is 0.5. Yep. The diameter would be 1. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for correcting that. Normalized time to represent universe lifetime. 0 equals Big Bang. Represent equals heat death. That part is not exactly right. Well, I mean for the bar that it's showing, yeah. Big Bang indicates over time following half-life. Because I'm basically trying to have it model the flow of the universe, right? As a way of modeling consciousness. Because again, this is if the universe is conscious. And clearly it doesn't like doing this. Return. It's working in half-lives. It's working in these ideas. And then we have midpoint travels along y equals x. Yep. Yeah, it's because it can't calculate impossibility necessarily. Even though I'm telling it that it just assumed that it's inversal to possibility. Really orange. It's interesting. Decays exponentially like radioactive half-life. Midpoint travels along y equals x toward origin as energy depletes. Yeah. Directly proportional to Q1. No, not 50% ratio, my guy. It's a 1-to-1 ratio. Accumulates inversely the Q1 midpoint travels along y equals x. See, that's where that also fucks up. So theory explanation. Determined by Q3 history. What cannot happen is constrained by what has been spent / destroyed. So I think I'll have to go over these constraints with it in detail. Path of least resistance, flow term. So that part, yes. Yes. Next possibility and possibility perpendicular to time, yes. Energy transformation occurs at origin, yes. Flow of time depends on remaining interactions possible. Q1 tends towards 0, time itself approaches heat death. Okay. So there's only a few of these statements I need to correct. Which is, I mean, it got existence right. Exponentially like radioactive half-life. So that's interesting, yes. But this proportionality needs to be 100% ratio. Accumulates inversely the Q1. The midpoint traveling needs to be away from the origin, not towards, as it accumulates. Alright, next time we'll go over trying to solve those theoretical issues and see if it can get an actual model without breaking. If it can't get an actual model without breaking, then I guess this is the limit. This is why we need a quantum computer to do this calculation. Or the model this, because I mean, well, if it does, then it should, I guess, work. It just works, but I don't know. This was very interesting. I'm very surprised by the results of this. Broke Claude. Because I think, yeah, these corrections should have been it. Because I'm fairly certain that I addressed those issues there. I don't know. Oh, well, until next time, this is Spark saying peace.